Today we're going to talk about the Great War, and it's not what you think. Hi, I'm Saratoga Ocean, and I work together with an interdimensional, interuniversal, and extraterrestrial force known as Telstar, along with Archangel Michael. So I guess it's pretty obvious that there is a big war happening on this planet. However, I think we have this entire situation, our entire global situation on every single level. I think we have it all framed erroneously. And you can kind of tell that we don't have it framed accurately because it's so difficult to feel like those of us who care about life and humanity and evolution, to feel like those of us who feel that way or care about such things have any traction, right? It's almost like we're spinning our wheels, we're looking around, and we're feeling like, are we even going anywhere in this situation? Or is this just like random chaos every single day? So I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think it is a sign, the fact that we don't feel a sense of traction, I think it's a sign that we are in an erroneous paradigm in terms of how we are seeing this situation and how we're interpreting it and the context within which we hold it. So today I want to talk to you all about making a profound and powerful shift in the context within which we are not only living on planet Earth, but also addressing the insane situation that seems to be unfolding here each and every day. And I think this is something that we really, really need to attend to because, we didn't come to this earth to sit here and just witness a bunch of craziness going on, led by what appears to be some pretty insane, psychotic individuals. We didn't come here to just watch this scene unfold and then, get freaked out, traumatized, filled with anxiety, confusion, and say, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? We didn't come here for that, right? We all know that. I think we know that in our hearts, that we came here for something much more powerful, much stronger, and much more leading edge than that. So why don't we talk about leading edge spirituality? And maybe we need to even look at the word spirituality in a vastly different light. Because I really think the way we talk about spirituality, the way we view it, is really very, dare I say, lame? Dare I say, weak? It's not that the truth of spirituality is weak. I think it's more that how we see it is very weak. I think in many cases, we tend to see spirituality as more of an add-on to our earthly life. Something that we add on to our lives to help us feel more peace, help us feel better, help us feel like we're on the right path, or whatever. Spirituality is not meditation. It's not going to church. It's not even praying, even though those things are fine. Sometimes in life, when I say life, I mean life in the universe, your life in the cosmos, your life on any given planet. Sometimes in life, when you recognize that how you're situated in your consciousness, how you see things, isn't really cutting it, if you know what I mean. That's the time to take a step back and say, hold on, this isn't right. I know I did not come here for this. Therefore, I must be out of alignment with something that's actually powerful, true, and real. So what I want to suggest to you all is that perhaps our perspective on all of it, including on how we see the word spirituality, is not exactly in full alignment with the highest of truths that would exist for us in this universe. Because if we were in full alignment, we know that we would be powerful. We know that we would be creating. We know that we would have impact and traction. We would not be feeling like we're on a treadmill or spinning our wheels going nowhere fast, right? So I would start by suggesting that the truth of spirituality or spiritual means full, accurate knowledge of one's self at an infinite level of being, at a quantum level of self, if you will, but certainly at an infinite level. The only reason you'd want to be in full awareness and experiencing yourself, your highest, most true self at a quantum level, is because it is from the quantum level that you manifest as a physical being. But even beyond that, it's you at an infinite level. So that would be full knowledge of oneself at an infinite level. That's not your earthly personality. It's not your earthly history. It's not your past life history. It's none of those things. It's deeper than that. It's bigger than that. It's more powerful than that. But there's more, because knowledge of the self is not going to be in full power unless it is in full union with the omnipresent force of love that has created all that is. That would be in full union with the power that creates and manifests the entire universe. That would be, I think, a more accurate definition of spirituality. And I also want to add one little caveat. Our language on this planet is complete, and it doesn't matter what language you speak. I'm speaking English. That's the language I know. A lot of you have different languages that follow me here. It doesn't matter what language. If it is a spoken language on planet Earth, it is inadequate in so many ways. I call them Earth-based languages because they generally apply to life on Earth only. They do not apply anywhere else in the cosmos. Now, why is this important to recognize? Well, it's important to recognize because if we don't recognize this very true fact about the extreme limitation of our Earth-based languages, which, by the way, are also the languages that we think in, right? If you speak English, you probably think in English. If you're primarily French, you probably think in French, and on it goes. But if we do not recognize how extraordinarily limited our Earth-based languages are, here's the trap we're going to fall into. We are going to expect that everything that can be known, every single thing in the universe that can be known, should be definable in Earth-based words. And if we think that that's all there is what we can define in our Earth-based languages, we are going to be missing critical, crucial knowledge that we need to have about ourselves, the cosmos we live in, and everything happening here on this planet. We're only going to be seeing a tiny fraction of what we need to comprehend. Now, I am going to get to the topic of the big war, but I need to set the stage first so that what I have to say about it is going to make some sense. So I think it's okay. We don't need to be so wedded to our words and our concepts and our explanations. The other reason we don't want to be so wedded to those things, you guys, is because that's also what makes us so easy to manipulate. Because we're so attached. We're so believing in the words that we say as being everything there is to know. or in the words that we think being all there is that we can understand. That makes us very easy to manipulate it. It also makes it so that, as I said, we're just getting a tiny fraction of knowledge and awareness. And we need so much more than that. So I want to suggest, I'm not saying get rid of our language, of course. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, can we just let go of it? Can we stop putting so much stock in our words? Can we come into a greater alignment with who we are and a greater awakening to our true selves that is so much more than this earthly existence? Can we come into a greater awakening of that on a conscious level so that we put our words, our languages, and our concepts in their proper perspective? Our capacity to know is much, much bigger than words. It really is. So if we can shift into alignment, and this is just a small part of shifting into alignment with the truth about who we are, spirituality and all of that. This is just a small part of it because there's more, which I'll get into in a moment. But if we can shift into alignment at this level, suddenly our consciousness expands. We become much more powerful and we see words in their proper perspective. Guys, when you get this, they can't manipulate us anymore. They can't, because all they have, think about it, the only tool they have to manipulate us is words. That's it. That's all they got. They don't have anything else. And if we understand the true nature of how limited those words are, and we stop attaching so much meaning to those words, my goodness, it's like, oh man, if you can't put something into words, it just doesn't exist, right? We got to stop doing that because we're making ourselves into sitting ducks. That's not where our power is. Our power is in awakeness, alignment, awareness, clarity, full, unadulterated clarity about who we are and also where we are in this universe. Now, I have an interesting proposition for you all. How about instead of looking to words for knowledge, we look to words for communication? And we understand that, yes, people can communicate knowledge of some limited sort to us through words, but our real knowledge is huge. It's massive. It's ginormous. See, pure knowledge is experiential. It's not conceptual. It's actually direct. Pure knowledge is direct contact with truth and how that truth is manifesting. That's what pure knowledge is. And right now, I think on this planet, we've gotten so committed to words that we have a very difficult time connecting with our intuition. We have a very difficult time having clarity. We have a very difficult time knowing how to even interpret anything because the words are being flung at us constantly 24/7 via the internet. And here's a funny thing I was thinking about as well. Do you realize that without words, the internet would be dead? It would serve no purpose at all? Because all it really is a transmitter of words in some form or another, whether spoken, written, or I guess that's pretty much it. So at any rate, what we want to attempt is to live as pure, awake, 100% awake consciousness, pure, 100% awake intelligence with the utmost level of clarity. So then when we plug into the world of words, we're not confusable. We're not able to be confused. We can see clearly when we're being manipulated. We can see clearly when we're being lied to. We can see clearly about all of it going on. That's the power that we have right here by virtue of the fact that we are alive. So I think this subject of earth-based languages and words is very, very important to understand, because it's the only way that we're going to be able to really be who we actually are. It's also important so that we are very clear when our thoughts are just a bunch of words churning around in our heads, getting us more confused, more filled with anxiety, more filled with doubt, more fearful, etc., etc. We can look at that and say, okay, those are nice words I'm thinking right now, but that's not all there is. And once you start to grasp some of what I'm saying, you're going to start to realize, you know what? This is a very quiet universe. This is a very serene cosmos. It's very quiet here, but it's very alive. It's very energized. It's very powerful. But at the same time, there's not a whole bunch of noise, because so much of the noise are those crazy words that we're so attached to, right? Now, in order to understand the paradigm shift that we need related to the Great War that I was talking about, let's take what I was just discussing about words and language and earth-based languages. Let's just put all of that stuff aside for a moment. Let's just realize that we're standing on a planet in a solar system in space. And all is very quiet here without all those words. It's very quiet. We're just standing on planet Earth and we're looking around and we're saying, what's going on here anyway? And why am I here? And what does this all mean? Well, at this point, if you can go deep enough, and again, get in touch with your heart does not speak to you in words. Your heart speaks to you with direct, absolute truth and knowing. That's how your heart speaks to you, not in words. So you now have a chance to get in touch with your heart. And what does your heart know? Your heart knows many, many, many things, you guys. Many things that maybe you have dismissed or turned a blind eye to. Things like, for example, let's talk about a few common things that your heart knows. Your heart knows that death is a bad deal, right? Death is just not a good thing. Violence is bad. Violence is just not something one would ever really want, right? Your heart knows that love should be ever present. Your heart knows that when you fall in love with someone, it should last forever. It shouldn't be over in 6 months where you look at the person and say, who is that person I thought I was in love with? They didn't used to be like this. You know what I mean? Your heart knows that that feeling of being in love, that amazingness, that romance, that beauty, that gorgeousness, that should be forever. There, and in that experience, you know, well, this is never going to end, right? This will go on forever, because that's what your heart knows. So then when it goes bad, like it so often does on planet Earth, most of the time probably, right? When it goes bad, your heart's like, oh, this is awful. I don't like this. This is awful, right? Your heart is trying to tell you that there's something much deeper wrong here. Your heart also knows that poverty's a bad deal. Poverty shouldn't exist. There should be no poverty. There should be no disease. There should be no pain. There should be no suffering. There should be no violence. There should be none of this junk, right? Your heart knows that. It knows it without the slightest shadow of a doubt. But here's what we do. We know that in our hearts and we say, no, that must be wrong. And then we say, well, how do you know it's wrong? Well, it's easy. This is like a conversation you might have in your head, right? There's a little conversation that starts to go on in your head when your heart's broadcasting the bold-faced truth. And this little conversation will go on in the head, back and forth. Well, no, that can't be true, because if that was true, it wouldn't exist. And it's all here. We're all having all these bad experiences on planet Earth. So that can't be true, that it's not supposed to be here, because if it wasn't supposed to be here, it wouldn't be here, right? Come on, really? That's a conversation that goes on in the head designed to negate the heart and what it is trying to get across to every single living being on the face of this planet. See, the problem we have on Earth, we don't know how to recognize or accept when something is blatantly wrong. We think all the stuff that's wrong is a behavioral issue. We think, you know what? All these people doing all these terrible things, if they could just learn to behave themselves better, then we wouldn't have all this trouble. Well, it's not a behavioral issue, you guys. It's an evolutionary problem. That's what it is. That's what I mean when I say we're just looking at our words and our language on planet Earth. We can't see the bigger picture. The problem is, now see if you can listen very carefully to this. The problem is that it's possible for all of this negative, bad stuff to exist at all. Because in a universe that is whole, that is complete, that is pure, that is beautiful, that is born of love and where there is only love, it isn't even possible for such things to exist. So the problem is not just, we cannot just stop at saying the problem is the fact that this stuff is happening. We have to go deeper and say, hey, the problem is that it's even possible for such things to manifest. What makes it possible for these things to exist at all? Well, that's an easy answer. Duality. Duality is what makes it possible for these things to exist. Now I'm going to give you the super fast version, super ultra fast version of what creates duality. It's real simple and it's real fast. And a lot more could be said, but I'm just going to give you like the super ultra condensed version. You start off with omnipresence, omnipresent oneness. That means love is 100% present. Love is the driving force behind all creation. And yet, there's free will, right? So somewhere along the way, somehow, again, guys, these words are not accurate because they're words from planet Earth. So understand the words are not exactly accurate. Okay, you're going to have to sort of get a hint between the words or behind the lines, if you know what I mean. Somewhere along the way, a lie was created. A lie that said, I am not omnipresence. I am not a manifestation of love. I am not the beauty and power and truth of all that is. I am not. Now, is it possible for something to be not that when omnipresent is omnipresence, one presence? Is it possible for anything in existence to be not that? No, it's not possible. So the only way to manifest such a thing is to lie. To say, I am not that, which is a lie. So duality can only be created by using a lie to create it. Now, of course, the problem is that once you start that ball rolling, it compounds itself very quickly and then manifests, I want to say almost like a disease in a way, but it just rapidly expands until it becomes a universe in and of itself, a universe of duality, which is the one we're kind of in right now. But because we don't listen to our hearts, which are trying to broadcast this huge truth to us, like, hey, people, red alert, there's something wrong here. This should not be happening. We don't listen. We shut that down. We look around. We see all the manifestations of duality in all the forms we see it here on planet Earth, which is where we are. So we might as well just talk about here, right? And we say, oh, well, if it's here, there must be a good reason. And then all the religions pop up and give us all the reasons why duality exists. You have things like, oh, well, God just wanted to have this experience because it would be fun. It would be interesting. Or some people say, oh, it's a test, And other people say, well, if you don't have bad things, you won't appreciate the good things. And that's why we need to have bad things. See? Kind of like if you went to a starving child, these third world countries where so many people are starving. Can you imagine going to a child that is dying of starvation and saying, it's okay. You're going to appreciate food so much because you don't have any now. That's why you're starving, see? My New Age spiritual teacher told me that, and I just wanted to let you know, no worries. This is going to help you really learn to appreciate food. So anyway, we make a bunch of excuses. We have a whole lot of explanations, and we call them spiritual explanations, right? And then because we have it all justified and excused, we're just setting ourselves up for more and worse. And I'm going to show you with the Great War how this is probably even bigger than maybe you're thinking. But we got to get some basics understood first so we can have a context for our actual situation. Now, here's the thing that's really important to recognize. As long as you continue to justify and excuse the existence of all of these negatives, let's just put it all in one word just to keep it simple. As long as you continue to do that and make it okay on some level that this stuff is around and excuse it, you can't evolve. Do you know why I say that? Because it means you do not understand what evolution actually is. So you can't have it both ways. You can't have all this stuff justified and excused and reasons why and all this junk, all this spiritual New Age kind of stuff about it. You can't have that and at the same time expect to evolve because evolution does not include any of it. Evolution means to right the ship of the entire universe. And it means that we play a role in that. But we cannot play our true, most empowered role if we continue to justify all of this stuff. So now what a lot of people are doing because they don't know what to do is they're dealing with their emotions, their anxiety, their nervous systems. There's so much talk about regulating nervous systems these days. That's not normal. We're not supposed to have to do that, you guys. That should not be our conscious mind's job. That should be taken care of when everything is in alignment. We don't need to be regulating our nervous system. So it's kind of like, I really feel like we need to take a step back and just, I'm getting a little more practical now on the more physical levels here of planet Earth. Yeah, there's all the wars going on there. I don't need to tell you all what's going on. I think we all know what's going on planet Earth right now, right? But it's not an answer to say, I need to find a way to cope. I need to regulate my nervous system, because that is almost like a statement that somehow this is still just okay with you at some other deeper, weird kind of level. You know what I mean? And I'm not suggesting don't do that if that means something to you, to regulate your nervous system, if that's how you want to approach this. But my goodness, that's not evolving. That's not conscious evolution. Doesn't require all of these coping mechanisms. Let me see if I can explain why I'm saying this. Because when you think the approach is to come up with ways to cope with it, you're not able to take a stand. Trust me, taking a stand is the most powerful thing you can do. And I don't mean running around with protest signs. Guys, you can't hold up a protest sign in the face of duality. I'm not talking about political protesting and all of that. It's like, what are you going to do other than evolve? But you can't evolve if you're not standing on very, very solid ground with a full awareness and understanding of your actual situation on planet Earth in this universe. You can't evolve if you're not. When I say take a stand, I don't mean resist. I mean stand on truth. Stand on what your heart has been telling you for your literal entire life, and probably for lifetimes prior to this one. I mean, be willing to stand on that truth. Be willing to take that stand. That puts you in a powerful alignment with massive forces of nature whose only desire and intention is to evolve this entire universe out of this dualistic state. So that instead of duality fighting with itself, everything that exists, every consciousness, every living being can get back in the business of pure, absolute creation. In an infinite universe where there's infinite space, an infinite cosmos, more than just one universe. There are no words. Our words are going to have to be left behind when we start talking at this level, because there are no words for what I'm describing, but I'm sure that on some deeper level, you know what I mean. So now let us get into the topic of the Great War and observe what's going on from a position of taking the stand, standing on the truth that your heart has been telling you for your entire life. Let's look at the Great War and see, what are we actually dealing with on this planet? Now, I know that a lot of people are framing this as a spiritual war, and I totally understand why that is. This is a war of darkness versus light. I'm going to change that paradigm for you guys. And if you resonate with what I'm going to say, then you can shift into that same paradigm yourself. I think I told you guys in my last video that there is no such thing as darkness and light fighting with each other, because light doesn't have to fight darkness. Darkness resists the light, which is why it's dark. That's what creates duality. That's the lie I was talking about. Light doesn't resist anything, because that's all there is light. But when you have a lie that resists the light, you have what looks like darkness. You have the absence of light. So we can't really accurately say this is a war between darkness and light. It's a spiritual war between darkness and light. Now, I want to share with you what I think is the biggest trap of all. The biggest, fakest, phoniest trap of all. And that has to do with a religious interpretation, and maybe you could even say a demonic interpretation on the other side of it. You have religions versus the demons, right? You have the idea of God over here, and then that creature, the satanic one, we all know what that's all about, right? Over here, and they're fighting and they're battling with each other. And oh my gosh. And now we have politics all mixed in with it, right? Now we've got politics and religion and God and this creature, and they're all, in this big wad. It's like a huge, horrible mess. And then, of course, well, the scriptures predicted all of this. The scriptures must be right because they said it was going to happen. So that's how we know we're right, because somebody wrote it in a freaking book. So what you have in that story is you have the ultimate. It's not really the ultimate. There are probably bigger versions of it somewhere, I'm sure. Well, I know there are. But you have, for planet Earth, you have the ultimate manifestation of duality, right? You have the so-called God, which is the light. And then you have the so-called darkness, which is the thing, the creature, which I'm not even going to label. We all know what I'm talking about, right? None of that is real, my friends. None of it. It is all another diversion. Now, when I say it's not real, I don't mean it's not manifesting. Yes, it's manifesting. That is true. But it's not reality. You know how you can tell it's not reality? Because it all depends on how you define God and light. Personally, I don't like the word God because I think religions have made it into this thing, this finite thing or person or entity. It's not an entity. I prefer another word like source, omnipresence, love, things like that. Ultimately, when you're speaking truth, it doesn't matter what you call it because it doesn't have an earth-based name. See, that's why words aren't the ultimate form of communication. Direct knowing is the ultimate form. So the biggest trap is to think that what we're undergoing right now is a spiritual war between darkness and light, a spiritual war between God and the creature. That's not the whole story, you guys. That's not the big war. That's a diversion. It's manifesting diversion, but it's a diversion. So what are we really dealing with here on planet Earth? Well, let's see if we can talk about this in the simplest of ways. See, I think we have a fundamental presumption that humans on Earth are perfect, they're wonderful, they're of the light, they're good, and they should be saved no matter what. But if you look at reality, humans on planet Earth have been in a lot of trouble for many thousands of years. They have been killing each other, torturing each other, doing all kinds of weird things, believing all kinds of craziness for a very long time. And what that's actually done is made humanity extremely vulnerable to predators in the universe, because planet Earth is not the only source of life, if you will. It's not the only habitat for living things in the entire gargantuan universe. I mean, you can't even count the number of stars. You certainly can't count the number of planets. You don't even know how many interdimensional things are going on. And to think that this is it, there's nothing else but us, that doesn't make any sense, right? The fact is, we don't even know how we as a humanity even got seeded on this planet. We don't even know. We probably have a history somewhere else. Certainly, maybe in this galaxy, maybe in a different galaxy, but we don't even know for real how humans even got seeded here and what happened prior to being seeded here on Earth. We don't even know. We don't need to know to deal with the situation that we're in. But let's not assume that we all just popped out of the soil like by magic. Here's the human being, yay. That's not real, you guys. So there's a history that goes beyond just our presence here today and just our presence on planet Earth in general. There's a deeper history. All we need to recognize is that so long as humans have been on planet Earth, there have been a lot of problems. Civilizations have come, they've gone, they come, they go, they kill each other, they do all kinds of stuff, they do bad things, they blow themselves up. Stuff happens, right? But what has not been happening is evolution. That's not been happening. How do you know? Well, now we're going to talk about the actual Great War. And also we're going to talk about how the Great Awakening fits in with the Great War. Now, when a human species ceases to evolve, they get themselves in all kinds of trouble because they're not really moving forward with strength and power in the universe. They're kind of stalled out, distracted, and involved in all kinds of other stuff, not actually recognizing the truth of what this universe is trying to accomplish, which is to evolve out of duality. So when humans stall out with a bunch of distractions and junk, like manifestations of duality, they tend to get in a whole lot of trouble, which is what's happening here right now. So let's just look at the beginning. We can't really go all the way back to the actual very, 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 very beginning, but we can certainly start at a beginning of planet Earth as a beautiful paradise of biological life. An incredible host of the most gorgeous life forms one could ever even comprehend. We are supposed to be a part of that. We are supposed to be a part of that gorgeousness ourselves and be here on earth to usher earth out of a state of duality and back into a state of oneness, brilliance, and infinite manifestation of its true immortal self. So somewhere along the way, long before we were even remotely aware of it, we got ourselves in a situation with AI, with what I will refer to as artificial life. Artificial life, AI stands for artificial intelligence, but I'm going to call it artificial life. Artificial life is an artificial form of life born out of the crux of the original lie of duality. It's fake. It's not real. It has no creative capability. It has no capacity to conduct the energy of love and omnipresence. And if you love the word God, you could say it has no capacity to conduct the love of God, because it's an artificial, fake version of life. And that's why it's not beautiful. That's why it's just machine-like, mechanical. It doesn't have the mark of paradise on it, if you know what I mean. Now, when this artificial life form comes into a planetary environment, because it cannot create, it does not have any creative power of its own, it must utilize other factions to do the work for it. It must utilize that which has the power to create, which would be human beings, which is a real life form, right? Artificial life is very much like a virus. I think the way a virus works is it takes over the DNA functions of a cell and then changes those functions to operate in favor of the virus rather than the host entity that it's taken over, or something like that. But you guys get the idea, right? So artificial life wants to take over our human intelligence, which is our ability to know and create things and make things, and twist it so that we start creating the world that it wants, instead of our true role in the universe, which is, as I've said many times before, to have a positive influence on the evolution of this planet. Now, that's not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing for artificial life to just burst onto the planetary scene and take over the humans' minds and all of that, because humans by nature are very powerful, strong beings. They're very powerful, very creative. So that's not the easiest thing to do. But there's a trick that gets used. The creature I was talking to you about earlier, the demons, all those characters in that little script, if you will, they are participants in this plan, in this plot, because they serve a number of purposes. They serve the purpose of creating a lot of fear, draining off a huge amount of energy, causing tremendous violence, causing a lot of bad things to be done, humans one to another, causing things like possession, causing a lot of turmoil, a lot of violence, and a lot of problems. They cause that because they feed off of that energy. And you guys have probably heard this anyway. This is probably not news to you, but they feed off of all of that suffering, pain, death, violence. They feed on it. So they're like, yes, indeed, we're happy to help out. This is how they weaken the human population so that AI can move in and take over. So it's sort of like partners in crime. And this is precisely why we don't want to get trapped in the belief that this is a war between darkness and light, between the demons and, the devil and God and all of that. We don't want to get trapped in that, because that's just the interim story. The real war, the real battle, my friends, is AI versus the incredible paradise of biological life. That's the actual war that we are in. All of this other stuff that looks like, the kind of war that we all recognize because we've been through it so many times for so many thousands of years, that's an interim play that's going on. The real war is AI versus all biological life. And until we recognize that, until we expand our consciousness to a level where we can fully comprehend what we are in the middle of, this train's just going to keep rolling downhill with no brakes. And see, it's working really well right now because everyone's caught up in the wars on planet Earth right now, right? Oh, there's the Middle East, there's Ukraine, there's maybe China, and then there's a bunch of little mini wars that no one ever talks about because they're not parts of the world that we're supposed to focus on. But there's wars going on all over planet Earth. But we just focus on the big ones. And now everybody's, guys, we can't afford to sit around being depressed and in despair and confusion and all of that, because that just means it's working. It means what they're doing is working beautifully. That's not helping us. I mean, when they unleash the bloodthirsty demonic forces of whatever to just take over and let's have wars, let's have killing. I mean, look at the stuff they're doing to people. It's horrific, right? I mean, it's horrific. And this is just how this works. So we get so messed up in our heads. We get so screwed up emotionally. We get so beside ourselves with grief and despair, and we just don't even know where we're at anymore. And that's the whole idea. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, AI is moving in very rapidly. Oh my goodness. Stuff's happening that no one talks about because we're just too busy thinking about all the violence. Do you see how we are so set up? And then the other trick, and I'm going to just complete this real quickly because I think it's getting a bit long. But the other trick is division. They want us fighting with each other. I mean, the war isn't just with the guns and the weapons and the tanks and the militaries. We're fighting each other now, right? What side are you on? You're a terrible person. Oh, yeah? Well, you're a terrible person too. I hate you. I hate you too. You're bad. So are you. I mean, really? Really, guys? I mean, haven't we learned something from what happened in 2020? Haven't we learned how easily we can be lied to, manipulated, and controlled? Because if we're fighting with each other, we are not evolving. That is for sure. Did you notice, have you ever noticed how quickly these protests spring up? On either side, it doesn't even matter. It's like they're spring-loaded. Like overnight, the media says, this is what you guys need to focus on. Bang, here come the protests. Like it was all organized in advance. Maybe it was. Gee, maybe it was. Who knows? But it's a little weird how everybody's got their flag and their emblem and their this and their that and their symbols and their rhetoric. And it's all, it's all just universally the same around the world, like overnight. It's so weird, isn't it? And then, you know what the worst part is? The worst part is all the people who are taking sides in the most, I'll say the most popular current war at the moment. You guys, if you're taking a side, those people doing all the killing and whatever they're doing are just proxies of your mind. They're just saying, yeah, I'm for you. Go for it. Kill all those people because they're bad. And I was watching someone else's video on YouTube earlier today, and she was saying how, she was saying there's so many people that will attack you if you don't take a side. They'll just attack you. It's so surprising, and I've heard other people say this, right? Like they're just so surprised, like all these comments of attacks, and I'm thinking, guys, you don't even know how many of those are bots, okay? You don't even know how many of those are actual human beings. Do you have any idea what AI can do now? They might not even be people. They might unleash a bunch of bots to get you to take a side. I don't believe everything I see anymore. I got to do another video to update the AI situation. Do you know there is actually an AI robot who has now been made the CEO of a company? I have to tell you guys that story. Maybe next video. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what I feel inspired to talk about next time. So clearly, I'm probably not going to fit everything into this one video, so we're going to have an ongoing continuation on some level. But let me just say right now let me come back to what I started with about the paradigm shift in terms of understanding our situation. So we have the artificial life. We have all the demonic creatures, right, that help to destabilize and drain energy, drain creativity, do, all the bad stuff. And then we have the human minions who go along with it, who think they're going to get some great reward, which they're not. They're being lied to. Hey, when you deal with liars, you're going to be lied to. It's kind of simple, right? So we have all that, and the most important thing to understand is the real war that we are in the middle of is a war between artificial life and biological life. And biological life means all living things on planet Earth. And maybe in another video, I can go into a little more specifics about that and what that actually means. But for right now, and if this doesn't resonate for you, that's totally fine, because like I said, this could be like a 3-hour video, and I'm not going to do a 3-hour video because that's just too long, right? So let me just complete with this. It's obvious that we need a paradigm shift about all of this, because how we're viewing it, how we're holding it on our minds and our consciousness isn't working. We need to have that feeling of traction and power and positioning and strength. In order to have that, we need a paradigm shift. We need to shift into greater alignment with truth and with what is actually going on here, so that we can correct our mistakes that led us collectively into this situation. Now, I don't mean to suggest that, there's only a handful of us who are responsible for all the people on planet Earth and what they're doing, because we're not. We're responsible for ourselves. But we don't even know what kind of energetic impact we can have on the whole if we get things right within ourselves first, because maybe we've never actually tested that for real. So if you want to know where to go from here, starting with what I've shared with you today, one single suggestion: listen to your heart. Practice being with your heart. Commune with your deeper self. Be in communion with your deeper self, because your deeper self knows the truth. It's the conscious thinking mind and the ego that gets you confused. But if you can just step away from all of that and get in touch with the real you, starting with the messages your heart is sharing with you continuously, you might start to feel yourself clearing. You might start to feel your mind begin to clear. You might start to have insight, revelations, inspirations, overall clarity, and inner strength and power. And you might find yourself more and more able to take that stand that I was talking about, where you can stand on what is true and what is real and what is the love that is behind all of this, attempting to move this universe through and out from under the mess of duality, transmute all of that, and bring this entire universe back into its true, most beautiful, most amazing expression of self. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it out with anyone else who you think would enjoy a different perspective on what is happening here on Earth. And be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell because I am here on Tuesdays with all new videos. And with that, I'm sending you so much love, light, and high vibrational energy. And may you be inspired every single day of your life. Have a beautiful day, my friends. Namaste.